Good evening and welcome to another episode of His Will for Your Life. I'm your host, Sherry Levon Harris, and we're going to be speaking on the God of all hope, domestic violence, that unspoken thing that we shy away from. And our guest tonight, our ram in the bush, is Kim Curse. Stay tuned and we'll be right back.
His Will for Your Life with Cherie Harris. This is your weekly Wednesday 7 p.m. podcast. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Informative, hot topics, testimonies, interviews, along with your weekly guests and more. And now here's your host, Cherie Harris.
Welcome back. I'm going to show you a short clip on domestic violence, and then our guest, Kim Curse, will be joining us.
I haven't been distant. Of course, I want to be here. I know I'm annoying. I know you didn't mean it, baby. Never gonna leave you. No, you're just scared as well.
There we are. How are you? How are you, Kimberly?
Hello, I'm doing great. Wonderful.
That's good. Thank you for joining us tonight. We know it was short notice that you are ram in the bush, and so we thank you for being available tonight. And so we're going to just go right in after we allow you to tell our viewing audience who you are.
I am Kimberly Curse. I am from Columbus, born and raised. I have two twin boys. They are wonderful. Those are the only two I have. They are 19 years old, graduates. One is in the Air Force and one is on his way out. So I am so grateful that God has allowed me to get this far, because the enemy had a plan to destroy me. And if he can keep my mouth closed, then that's a weapon for him to destroy me. So I wasn't going to let that happen, and neither was God. Amen. So I am here tonight, just God's will to just tell my testimony and how God broke me away. He got me free after multiple incidents of different types of abuse. Because physical wasn't the only abuse I've endured, in my whole lifetime.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to start off with this. So I've heard victims say, or I've heard it said, that they're afraid to leave, but they're also afraid to stay.
Okay, well, in my situation, because I can only tell my situation. Yes, I was afraid to leave, but then again, I knew if I stayed, I was going to die. Mm-hmm. So that was, I knew ultimately I was going to either stay in it and keep suffering abuse, or either he was going to end up killing me. And it got to the last point where he was about to kill me.
Mm. So how did you feel, and how did that affect you emotionally?
By me being the only girl out of three boys, I always had to fight for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So by me going through the things that I went through, dealing with, I have never been through that. It was traumatic for me.
Mm-hmm.
The abuse was traumatic. I never met nobody like him, you know. So it sent me in a whole nother, after the abuse, it took my mindset in a whole total different place on how I view certain things, you know, men and all those type of things. So it did some emotional damage tremendously. It had.
Okay. So you spoke earlier about the emotional piece and the physical piece.
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience this with just one individual or several individuals?
Well, the physical aspect of it, when I speak about the emotional part of it, I suffered that with him, that portion of it. But as time went on, you know, as when he got out the picture, you know, I suffered some other things as far as abuse with other individuals, but it wasn't physical. Okay. It was more mental.
Okay.
It was more mental, other than, you know, just it was the lies, the deceit, and the narcissism. Mm-hmm. And things like that with that side of it. But the first portion was the physical part of the physical and the verbal part of it. Just tearing me down as an individual, as a woman, as, you know, me just not even having no identity. My identity was totally stolen. I was broken. I was something that I knew that I didn't have no business even being in my mind.
So elaborate on that. What do you mean?
Okay, so the abuse started. It started pretty early on. You know, I was 8 months pregnant with my boys. I had twins, so I was 8 months pregnant with them. So it started from that standpoint. I was, at that time, I was like 23, 24 years old. When the abuse took place. So me, you know, not knowing, you know, because he was so busy fixing me until nothing he did was wrong. So at the point I was 8 months pregnant, I can remember him bending me over the bed. He just was gaslighting. He was gaslighting conversations just to dig up, to have a reason to do the things he did to me. So I remember that he had me bent over the bed, and I was 8 months pregnant with the boys. I was about to get, you know, go in labor. Right. And so he was choking me. So his two thumbs were in the middle of my throat right here. And it was like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you fixing to die. I couldn't call for no help. I didn't have any family members around to even come to my rescue. He fixed it. He pretty much isolated me so that no one could come to my rescue. And then he also played, played on the emotional side of me, telling him, you know, about the relationship between me and my mom. So that's what did it for him. So he pretty much, I was isolated from a lot of people I love, family, and all that. So it started when I was 8 months pregnant, and I thought I was gonna die that night. It was nothing but God that saved me. God spoke to me a couple of times, but me being just fresh into knowing who I was in Christ, I just had got baptized. Because like I said, he was busy trying to fix me, and he never looked at himself. Nothing was wrong with him, nothing at all. But after the occasions of the abuse, he would go somewhere and cry and try to, it's like self-pity. You know, like I said, he would just cry after he would do what he would do. He just go to sleep like nothing, you know, like he wasn't bothered. Wake up again, and he just on to the next, whatever, you know, he planned his day on doing. So it was just kind of like, that was the first incident I ever had with him. And that at that point, we weren't married at that point. I didn't get married to him till after my children were born. Okay.
So were there any signs of abuse before then, or was there a history of abuse in his family or yours?
You know what? He didn't have any signs before then. He didn't. His motive was to isolate me first. That's what his whole motive was. So there was no and as far as his side of the family, I always tried to know who they were. I always tried to figure out who those people were. He would never take me to meet them. So I knew right then and there was something wrong. Because I was getting a lot of unanswered stuff. And like every time I asked him stuff, he would always, oh yeah, you try to throw me off, you know. So, you know, I dealt with a lot of things, you know, in my childhood as well. As far as, you know, being kind of just being the only girl out of 3 boys, you know, I felt like I was it's that a lot of things started early there as far as, you know, parenting. And, you know, my mom we didn't have the best relationship, and she would cuss me out and say this and say that, and I was kind of on the abusive side on that end too, dealing with her. So
and so you struggled with abuse for some time. How did it affect the children? How were they affected by the abuse, or were they privy to what was happening?
My children,
Mm-hmm.
Thank God that every time he had an episode or incident, they would always sleep.
Oh.
They were 2 years old at the time too. They were babies. They were really, really small at the time. That, you know, and I always thank God to this day that they didn't see the stuff that he did to me. I thank God, because they wasn't a witness, you know, because there's no telling how my children would have turned out, seeing the fact that, you know, now that I'm a single parent, and here it is, you know, that it's just, it would have been a generational curse over their life as well. So those things are broken. And I thank God.
Yeah. Awesome. Did you, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, were there any experience of honor-based abuse, where, you know, maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but, you know, with sexually abuse in that area of, you know, tormenting you in your private areas and things like that?
No, that's one thing I'm grateful for, that bypassed it. There was no sexual abuse with him. He was just more physical. He would, you know, he was like lash out. He was just more physical than anything, and then more verbal too. But not the, you know, I didn't get the sexual end of it.
Okay, so take us back to being 8 months pregnant. You're leaning over the bed and he's behind you. I'm assuming that's the visual I see. He's behind.
He was like on top, like, you know how you straddle somebody on top of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was like on top, like straddling me like this way.
Okay, so take us back to that night and tell if that is not going to take you to a place.
Oh no, I'm fine. I'm delivered. I'm set free. So okay. I was asking him something that night. We were upstairs because I stayed in public housing at the time. Mm-hmm. I was staying there because, you know, I didn't have nowhere else to go. So the thing about it was, I was staying in public housing. He knew my housing had came through. He was there that particular night. I don't know if he was. I think he was coming to visit because he did welding. He worked out of town a lot. So that particular night he was there, and I was upstairs, and something happened where he started talking about his mom or something like that, and then he just kind of got lit, just all of a sudden. It was nothing I did, you know, to him. It just that he was just, it's like a person that find a reason to lash out for nothing. So he started talking about his mom. He started just having these episodes. And me, I don't even know about, I didn't at the time, excuse me, at the time, I didn't know anything about psychiatric problems and stuff that go on in people's head, you know, when they lash out and do certain things. So I'm just kind of like, okay, you know, why is he talking about all this? So he just all of a sudden he went from 0 to 100. I don't even know. I can't even tell you what did I really do to him to make him, you know, react the way he did. But he did, and some thoughts started coming up in his head, and he just lashed out. Next thing I know, he was on top of me, choking me like I had did something, like he was taking something out on me that I didn't even do.
Was he a believer?
He struggled. He struggled in that area. And at that time, I was trying to find out what was he. I was trying to figure out what was he anyway. You know, we did go to church. We went to church. We were a member at the time. I don't think we was a member because we wasn't in church then, but at a particular point after my children were born, which was in 2002, we did join the Bread of Life. God rest his soul, Pastor Skinner, love him. But we were a member that we went there continuously, you know, and looked like to me he was trying. It's like it was a battle between him doing bad and doing good. So he was wrestling with some things spiritually and some things in the natural. And I couldn't pick it up right then. So it was kind of like, oh my God, he's one person. I didn't understand what in the world was going on, because it was nights when he was sleepless. He would get up out the bed and walk the streets. And I was just trying to figure out the demons that he was actually dealing with. And I didn't know, so I'm just in the blind all the way. So I didn't know where his faith really was. He was so busy trying to correct me and make sure Kim was right till nothing was wrong with him.
Wow. So when did you decide to leave?
I decided to leave when it got really, really bad. And I advise I tell any woman, don't wait until, if he act like he's going to hit you, don't even let it get bad as it got with me, because it got really, really bad. I was almost about to be killed before I left, because I kept going back. He kept coming with the crocodile tears, crying, saying, oh, I'm sorry. But he never once said, I ain't going to do it no more. He never said that. He never said, oh, I ain't going to hit you no more. I ain't going to put but it was always a story to kiss up to get back in. But he was doing it because he saw the kids as beneficial to him. He used the children on his taxes for 2 years. I was in beauty school. I didn't work. So he was just collecting. He always had to look good. It was about image, the way he looked and the way he wanted people to perceive him. Mm-hmm. He would take my clothes, put them in the dumpster. It was okay for him to tear me down and build himself up. So I went through a lot of things, but death was the ultimate, almost was fixing to be the ultimate answer for me. If I hadn't prayed and asked God to free me that night. Oh my.
What type of relationship does your children have with him, if any?
They don't have one. They wouldn't know him from a can of paint.
Really?
I've showed them pictures of him, because he's still, sadly to say, he's still incarcerated right now, because he turned around and did another woman. He almost killed her. So it didn't stop with me. So they wouldn't know him from a can of paint. They see his pictures, but they just found out when they turned 18 that they had another sister.
Oh wow! Wow.
It's deep.
So how do they feel? Because I'm sure this is not the first time you've sharing your story. So how are they responding to what he's done to you?
It hurts. It hurts. It hurts like any other, that it would hurt any other child that don't know why the parent is absent. Because in my mind, I always created this thing in my head where I wanted to be married. I wanted this picket fence with a house, and I wanted all this, I wanted stuff to be done right. Mm-hmm. So, in that aspect, it's just, they don't know. And I try to, and it's like, I think one of my sons don't cope with it too well, but it's just kind of like, it is what it is. And I think he probably still deals with the fact that, but it hasn't been to the point where it messed my children up in the long run for their career and the way that they're going, because they don't hang out. It's just, and it's because they've had good people around them praying. I've kept them in God's hand always.
Awesome. I'm glad that the outcome is different. And that
yes.
We're talking about it. Unfortunately, some people stay a little too long.
Yes.
You talked about narcissism earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And, I read somewhere where it stated that in order to leave a narcissist, you have to leave very, very quietly and have a well thought out plan when you're leaving them. Was that your case when you were dealing with a narcissist?
With that case, it just got and I didn't even understand it. And we're talking about like this was a relationship I just parted from recently, mm-hmm. like back in June of 2020. It was, I couldn't understand this person. I mean, like I said before, the enemy comes differently. Uh-huh. He's not going to come the same way. And we must use the spirit of discernment and pray and fast on whoever's trying to come in our life. Because if we know we have a mandate on our life, we have to be careful because the enemy is cunning. He came into my life and he was charming, for one. Uh-huh. He said that he prayed for a woman like me. God has said, I mean, he said all the right stuff and claimed to be this, the church, type man. And, he believed in the word and all these. He said, I'm telling you, he said all the things that I thought would make him the husband that I finally had found. But things were moving a little bit too fast in the beginning. So I didn't see God and start dealing with me until I started sitting around watching him. I used to watch the stuff, but at this time in the relationship, I still didn't know I was dealing with a narcissist. I would call him out on every single thing he did. And I think when I did all that, it kind of pissed him off. It kind of made him upset because I got a sharp spirit of discernment and I see things. I see what you're trying to hide. God does speak to me, because I have a prophetic mantle. So he was speaking to me in the whole, situation, but I didn't know, I couldn't sum it up. I knew he was dealing with pride. He was dealing with some hurt issues. He was dealing with ego. It was all about him. He was emotionally disconnected. I knew all those things, but I didn't know that it was like a one word for the whole person.
Wow. Whew. Okay. So we have a question. So let's just go to this question. Jennifer West asked, "What was it, emotional and physical?" So she's joining us
with my children's father, or with the narcissist, because those are two different people.
Okay. How did you get the strength to leave him? So she's asking two questions. So Jennifer, we need to know, are you talking about the marriage or the second person, which was the narcissist? So perhaps you can just answer the question in whole, and so give her.
Okay, so how did I get the strength to leave? Well, it got pretty bad. I was tied up. I was duct taped. I was put in the back of the car. I was beat across. I had stitches across my head here. I thought he knocked my teeth out, so I got scars here. So the ER, the police, and everybody else had to get involved for me to finally just throw my hands up and say, God, if you get me out of this one, that was my prayer. When I was in the backseat of that car, wrapped up in a sheet, bleeding from my head. I said, if you get me out of this one, I promise I won't go back. And immediately he was taking the kids' stuff to the car, trying to pack them up and take them, because he was not going to leave nothing. He really didn't want them. It just that the fact that, he just was probably going to do it to hurt me. So that's how I got the strength to leave, is when it was ultimately that, or he was going to dump me somewhere and kill me.
My God. So Jennifer stated that it was the narcissist that she wanted to know that question to. So the question was it emotional or physical? It
was mental. It was mental and emotional, I can say, but it's more mental than anything with the narcissist.
So give us a visual of what mental looked like to you while you were going through it with the narcissist. The narcissist.
Okay. Mental was always like he would never own up to nothing he did. Only time he actually owned up to something he did was when he got caught, and he couldn't even blink on that one. That means that he had to be exposed, like for right there for what it was, and that's when I caught him cheating with the neighbor. So that's how he was end up exposed, and I ended up talking to her. So it wasn't no way he can get out of that one. So that was the only time he actually confronted the fact that he was wrong. But other than that, he don't do no wrong. He don't apologize. He's always gaslighting. Oh, and then he reversed the blame on you, like he didn't do nothing. It's kind of like, to make you think that you crazy and he's not, And it just was just a lot of emotional games. And I was always crying because the emotional side of me and the God side of me was always crying out, trying to figure out what was wrong with this person. And every time, things happen, I'm more emotional, because us women are more emotional anyway. But at the same time, he was disconnected. He would walk around. He wasn't lovable. He wasn't affectionate. He didn't display none of the things that I thought. We can't blame PTSD on everything, because he was retired military. But no, PTSD didn't have nothing to do with the fact that you just emotionally unavailable and you disconnected. You don't feel nothing. It's all about you.
Wow.
It was everything was all about him. It was never about, making Kim happy. As long as I was there to cater to him and do what he wanted me to do, that's what he wanted. When I asked, when it came time for him to show up to do something I wanted, he would avoid it, say he can't do, he allowed to get out of it. So it's just plainly, I just catered to somebody that really didn't love me. He played and pretend.
Wow. We have a question from Jacqueline Samuel. She asked, have you gone through professional counseling, not just at church as many women do? Good question.
Yes, that's a very good question. And no, I have not went through any professional counseling. I stayed in church. I stayed on my face, and I did a lot of praying that God healed my heart first. Okay. Because that's what it takes ultimately. It takes God to really heal you from the inside out. Okay. Because you can go talk to many professionals. I mean, that's okay. I'm not knocking no professionals, but if you're not healed from the inside out, then you'll still carry these things, you'll still carry these things to the next relationship, and you'll look at everybody the same. And it's not true. So no, I have not, as to this day, sought any professional counseling. And I'm not telling nobody not to, but it just all depends on where you at. I haven't. I just know that God, I just always ask God to give me a pure heart and clean hands and to heal me, because that's what it takes. Because one thing about going to a professional, they can't heal you like God can.
Come on now.
Can't nobody do me like Jesus.
Can't nobody do you like Jesus, but it is also good to seek out professional counseling. Yes. For those who are struggling, because and everyone's not in church, but we do need someone with some experience.
That's true. Absolutely true.
So, did you ever ask God this question? Why were you attracting these individuals?
I never did. I just kind of like went on through, I never did ask God why I was attracting those individuals, but I knew that there was a mandate on my life. I knew that there was somewhere that God was trying to get me to, but I didn't understand, the fact that the enemy will always intervene, and he was always trying to stop what God was actually trying to do. So no, I didn't even ask. I just kept going like, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And, not knowing, okay, here he come again. Here he come again. But at the same time, I asked God to give me the spirit of discernment so I can see. So I can be wide open, so I can see in the spiritual realm, and I can see if they up to no good or whatever may come. Because a lot of times we can't see. Sometimes the enemy outsmart us. Yeah. If he don't come that way, he gonna come a different way. Mm-hmm. It's just that they say what they say about the bowl of soup. the bowl might change, but the soup might not change. You might get the same soup.
I didn't hear that one. So when you were the first one, your husband was physically abusive. Mm-hmm. So then the enemy knew that he couldn't get a man that come and abuse you this time physically, because you would know the signs. So right. He came with someone that would mess up your mind, if you will. So
right. He came with things like he would like I've been in a relationship with men would just buy me things and would just lie. It went from the minus abuse to the deception, the lies, men having other women besides me. They would lie, they would buy things to cover up. It's the buying part. I'm telling you, all of them were buying things. Even the narcissist, he bought things. That was his way of apology. He would buy things. So it's like I'm not materialistic. You can't buy me. So, but they thought that's what I was wanting to cover up for all the deeds, all the enemy was sent for them to do that. So that's what the enemy thought. I love things. I don't need that. So that's why when I was able to see through these things and know what the enemy is doing, I just cut it off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have a question from Paula. Did either of them have issues with alcohol or drugs?
Well, I did not see. One thing I didn't see, and I'm just being honest, I don't know, but with my husband, the one that was abusive, physical abusive, I did not see him do no alcohol, and I didn't see him do no drugs. I don't know what he did when he was away from me, but I didn't see none of these things. No. And with the narcissist, he didn't he didn't drink or smoke either. So I didn't see none of these. It was everything that they were doing it was pretty much that was led they were led to do this stuff on their own. They were driven by demonic forces to actually do, certain things.
I was getting ready to say it seems more demonic. So that's you had to warfare. That's probably why you had that prophetic gift now. We have a question from Sandy Gotzi. I was in 2 abusive marriages. I realized it was a generational curse that had to be broken. Why do you think you ended up in 2 abusive relationships?
The reason why I believe I ended up in 2, because he couldn't, for one, with the abusive situation, he couldn't go that route no more. Mm-hmm. He couldn't do it. No, he couldn't physically. That was like no. That was a stamp right here saying no more physical abuse.
Okay.
So that's why I didn't have repeated offenders when it came to the physical aspect of the abuse. So the enemy knew, okay, I can't come that way. I need to go around the street and I need to go dig up somebody else, and I'm just gonna get her another way. So that's why the other relationships that I've been in with the cheating and the lies and deception, and then finally with the narcissism, he was gonna run me crazy because I started thinking that I was crazy, and I'm like. And then, because it was something that would well up in me, and it would take me back every time he would accuse me of certain things. It started getting bad. It's something well up in me. Say, oh, the Holy Spirit would just nudge me, oh my God, he didn't just say this to you. He didn't just say that, because he would say things, And I was like, oh my God, am I back? And it took me back to my ex-husband for some reason. The narcissistic ways took me back to my ex-husband. Wow. So it was like the enemy has to come, but he's not gonna come because when you have a strong mandate on your life, I'm telling you, it's not gonna look the way it present itself. It's always gonna change. It's gonna change colors on you eventually. One thing about it, people can't hide who they really are for too long.
Absolutely. I had a supervisor who would tell me she was one of my best supervisors I've ever had, but we talked a lot, and she shared with me. She said, within 3 months, the real person always shows up. And I kid you not, within 3 months or less, the real person always shows up. I can spot them a mile away. And it's just like, okay, I'm going to give you the 3 months. But sometimes they don't even make it to the 3 months.
That's right.
So how were you afraid for your children with the narcissist?
No, because he would front around them too. He would put on and act like he just was this great person. And then my children were teenagers. When we met, they were like 17. They were like 16, 17, something like that. When we met, so they were like 17, 18. Like 17 when we met. So no, I wasn't afraid. They just would watch him too. They would watch him, but they didn't endure a lot of the stuff that I did because he was always, he was around them, but he wasn't. They didn't see they wasn't around him enough to examine what type of person he was. But they would come and tell me things that they actually would observe about him that just wasn't right. He was one of them ones that would practice things that he would preach things that he was not practicing. So they did see a lot of those things in him. They saw some things in him that just wasn't right. And see, it's like he had a son and I had 2 sons. When our sons used to play together, but it's like his son was spoiled because his son is the baby of all his other siblings, and his son had everything. I used to tell my children, don't get caught up into that. Don't look at that. So it's like, him trying to tell my children something was like backfiring, because it was like, well, how can he tell, us something when he ain't doing, and it's very important for women to just be mindful who they let in their children's lives, because children, not only girls, but boys, they watch everything we do. Even when it comes to relationship, you cannot have everybody around your children, because children start to saying, well, that's person the reason why this happened and that happened. So, you don't, at the end of the day, when that person is gone, you don't want your children to come back and just resent you for a lot of things that actually took place that shouldn't have.
Malcolm X's daughter stated some years back when they were asked her questions about what did she remember about her dad. And she said, never underestimate the mind of a child. No. And so even though they were young, they witnessed a lot, they heard a lot, they saw a lot. So
that's right.
Yeah. So we do have to be careful with our children. So there's someone listening now who is currently in an abusive relationship, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, you name it, they're in it. It can be a first lady of a church. It can be the deacon's wife. It can be someone in church that's holding a leadership position, and they're afraid to get out because now everybody's going to know. And plus, it's going to hurt the position that they're in at church. So what would you say to those individuals?
I would say don't be afraid. I mean, sometimes you have to step out on faith and do what's best for you, no matter who you feel like is watching, who do you feel like is gonna know. You have to do what you have to do to save you. And if you got kids, you have to think about your kids at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's about you surviving and you getting out. It don't matter what it looked like or what people may say or what it seemed, because I was, even in my situation, I was torn down. I was torn down coming out of mine everything was just messed up. My whole life was messed up. I stayed at the shelter. My whole life it crumbled right in front of family members and everything. But you know what? I still had a will to live and all of that. So it didn't matter what it looked like, I just knew what I had to do because I had two little children, two little boys that were 2-3 years old that was counting on me. And I was not about to let them down.
Amen. Amen. We thank you for your strength. Jacqueline Samuels asks this question: how can women's group in church better equip and educate women in the churches and surrounding communities about this issue, psychologically, legally, physically, etc., beyond just the spiritual side of healing?
Well, you get that's the thing, you have to open up and tell somebody, because if you walk around in silence and you don't tell somebody what you're going through, then you're hindering your healing process, because you do need a place to go spiritually and whatever, and vent to people that actually care. So if nobody is aware of what's going on, we can't sift through stuff. And being a victim of abuse, you can't always force yourself on somebody and they not willing to open up and tell you what they're actually going through. Somebody has to you have to actually tell your story. You have to tell somebody, listen, I need to get away, I need to get free. And when you get free, you need to stay free. So it's like, it's more to, it's not that the church ain't talking about it. People are not making these things aware to people that actually can care and love them, and that can actually help them get out of these situations. You got to form a group. You got to get together. You got to know what it takes to flee and just leave. Because if you don't talk about it and you hold it in, then you can't get no help. A closed mouth don't get fed. Yes, there's more to be done. It's a whole lot that can be done. You got to find somebody you trust. And the thing about it is, you just have to do what you have to do to know that you got to make it. And then no matter how bad it looks, you just got to go for what you know.
True. And a part two of that, to answer her question, she asked, how can women's group in churches better equip? And I would say have more open forum conversations.
Yes, most definitely.
Where they're free to speak, where they feel that there is a non-judgmental platform. It's a safe space for them, because they need to know that what I share here is not going to get back to the perpetrator. Right?
That's right. It has to be true. You have to be transparent.
Right. And so a lot of us aren't transparent, and that's why these groups are needed. And that's why some of these women are actually suffering. We have a question from Paula. Where do you draw your strength to share your story?
It comes from being healed. Just knowing that God has more for me than just this. That's how I draw strength. I draw strength just by standing God. We are just kind of praying a lot and just knowing that, at the end, God is going to get all the glory. And then I draw strength, I draw strength, believe it or not, through helping other people. That's, only when I see there need to be help. But that's how I draw strength, by telling my story, basically. Because I can't get it no other way. So, and then I'm healed too, So a lot of people that don't talk about things like this, they're not completely ready. They're not ready to open up and talk about these things. But, you know, I mean, everybody's different, but I'm healed. It's been almost 20 years, you know, since the physical part of it, but only like a year with the narcissism. That I'm still not in no relationship. That really creeped me out. I'm just kind of like,
I was going to ask you about that. Okay.
No, that really, you know, that took a toll on me mentally, really, really bad. So no, I'm not, you know, I've forgiven him, and I wish him the best, but at the same time, if somebody asks me, hey, you know, such and such, who is he? Said, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth and shame the devil. One thing I won't do is keep my mouth closed. If I can save somebody else from going through what I went through, then I'm going to tell it, because that's what the enemy don't want. He wants us to keep our mouth closed, so we won't tell what the truth about nothing and what God is doing, and he has done. So if I can set somebody free, I'm going to open my mouth and set somebody free. And if they don't listen, then hey, it's on them. You know, it's all for me.
Mm-hmm. Amen. We have a question from Pastor Geraldine. What type of behavior should you look for while observing there may be possible abuse? Good question.
The type of behaviors. That's my pastor, Pastor Geraldine Boone Porterfield. That's my pastor. Love you, Pastor. The type of signs you look for is, let's see, you just watch their behavior, how they interact, the things that they do, the things that they say, how they treat you. Because like I say, it all depends on what they're trying to gain from it, for one. Because they could just, you know, when the enemy has set somebody out like that, it's something that they want from you. Control. They want to control you. Mm-hmm. They want to tell you they want you to believe solely in them, and they don't want you to believe nothing nobody else says. Mm-hmm. So it's basically it starts with control and isolation, trying to keep you away. Why are you on the phone with them? And it starts with the cursing. You know, you can't get on the phone. You can't be you. You can't even go to the bathroom, and they trying to figure out where you going. So it just started out being controlling, really trying to control, you know, you mentally, and trying to put you in a box.
Okay.
So that's where it starts, and you just got to watch the different behaviors, and it sometimes you won't see it right off, but they can't hide too long.
3 months. Pastor Porterfield asked this question: Does it leave you with PTSD?
It can leave you with PTSD. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Like it did with me with my ex-husband. I used to have nightmares. He was chasing me. So yes, yes, I used to have dreams about him constantly after me, like with knives and guns shooting at me, doing all kind of stuff. So yes, it can leave you traumatized. Yes, so it did that for a while until I had to shut it down. I had to shut the enemy down. I say, you know, no, you can't have no control. You have to talk to God about this stuff. So yes, it did. It left me traumatized for a good little while until God just came in and totally, because I know he can't do anything to me anymore. So I was more scared. I wasn't in love with him though. I didn't feel love while I was with him. So it was kind of like it was a part of me that was really separated from the fact that he really actually loved me, because I felt like, and I think that's the difference between me dealing with my husband, the abusive side, and the narcissist side. The narcissist, I fell in love with him, and it messed me up.
So that's why it messed you up mentally, because you were attached to him.
Yes, and his demons.
Oh, goodness. We have a question from Jacqueline Samuels. Even though everyone is different, what would you say the element of abuse was? Worse physically, mentally, or emotionally, and why?
I think that physically it was bad. It was pretty bad physically, because I started getting all the marks and all the bruises and stuff like that. Physically it was bad. Mentally it was pretty bad, you know, and I'm saying it just because I put my heart in it. That's why it was bad. Now some people ain't connected, you know, they not set up, everybody's not set up the same. So you may not, you know, everybody, some people they'll fight their victim. See, when I was with my ex-husband, which was the first person that abused me, I wasn't fighting him back. I used to just let him just have his way with me. He used to just beat me up completely. You got some people, they'll fight. They'll go toe to toe with you. They ain't going to let you beat them down. But me, on the other end, it left a place in me, that was still hurting and abused, and I didn't fight back. So that was the different side. But with the mental side, I fought back with the mental side and still didn't win. But at the same time, he knew who he was dealing with, So all of it is bad. It's just it depends on how you internalize it and how you take it and how you deal with it, depending on the outcome.
I have another question. How do you get the courage to walk away from an abusive relationship and don't feel guilty?
Because you gotta realize what this person what did they ever bring you in the first place. You got to realize your worth. You got to realize who you are. For you to walk away, you got to realize that you deserve better. You got to realize that God didn't create you to be no punch bag. That's what you got to realize. You got to realize that your self-worth is more important than somebody to be beating and hitting and knocking you around every chance they get. So no, it's not. It's like guilty. No, I was not guilty. My life is more important than feeling guilty over somebody trying to knock me upside the head every chance they got. So I wasn't guilty at all. I took that. I took that. I said, this is the last time you gonna hit me. So I am a weapons. I do carry a weapon now. That's only for my protection, not to intentionally hurt anybody, but because of all the things I've been through, and I'm not gonna do that no more. So, you should never feel guilty for saving yourself. You should never feel guilty.
Amen. Thank you for sharing that. We have a question from Vanessa Green. Did it concern you that you entered a second abusive relationship and the red flags didn't get your attention sooner?
You know what? The red flags did get me on the second relationship with the narcissist. It did get me. But what he did was he kept coming. He kept on. Every time I would leave, I had left the relationship like 10 times. And then, he bought the ring. Yeah, I had a ring and all. So I did get red flags. Yes, I did. But every time I would leave, he would buy me back. I'm going to pay you off and you're going to come on back. So that was his method of getting me to come back. He had no intentions on loving me. He had no intentions on marrying me. I was just there only for his good, just to only be what I needed to be in his life at that time being. But like I said, the red flags went up. They did. I saw a lot of things. It was just boom, boom, back to back. He did a whole lot of stuff. So he knew that he had done so much. So he knew it when I didn't trust him no more. He was always hiding his phone. He was always telling lies. He was always somewhere cheating, telling lies about that, gaslighting, I ain't doing nothing. It just kind of like got to the point where I couldn't trust him no longer. And he knew that. So he had to hurry up and get out. I got to gaslight her so I can move on to the next person. Because I done did so much to her, she ain't going to take me back. And if she do, she ain't going to trust me.
Wow. For those who are just joining us, because in the beginning when we showed that video clip, not many was on. And I just want to show that video clip again because women make excuses for the perpetrator as well. Yes. And that's where they have been emotionally caught in the web, if you will.
Right.
So we'll be right back.
I haven't been distant. Of course, I want to be here. I know I'm annoying. I know you didn't mean it, baby. Never could I leave you. No, you're just scared as well.
At any time, did you make any excuses for your perpetrator?
Did I make excuses for him? I didn't make excuses for him, but I did save him from getting killed because I got a whole host of family members. I have a whole host of brothers, a whole host of cousins. It's majority boys in my family. So I actually didn't tell nobody that he was actually doing these things to me. So when everything went down, finally, That's why people were so shocked. They was like, oh my God, you didn't tell. Because I didn't. I was saving him, actually, because I never told nobody what went on in my marriage. I never told nobody actually what he was doing to me. So, you know, that was another, that was one of them things where I was silenced and went to lamb because I didn't want to involve them because I knew they were going to kill him. I already knew it. They came down there one time, like in a whole group knocking on my door in the apartment, and they were like, if you just say the word, we're going to get him right now. So it was no problem for me to actually, you know, get him beat up or hurt real bad. That was no problem. But I actually saved him because I didn't even tell, you know, I didn't tell nobody what he was actually doing until they actually found out when it was all over with.
Okay. All right.
So I kept it a secret.
Okay. We have 2 questions coming up. So this first one is from Hiradel Lovett. Hi, Mom. The question is, do you discuss with the second person about how the first one treated you?
Oh, I most definitely did because I feel like if we're gonna take a step further, I was with this second person, mind you, 2.5 years. So yes, I did tell him about the abuse. I did tell him about all the things that I went through, and he claimed he was so don't put your hand on a woman, but he didn't see that he was really mentally abusing me. So yes, he knew about it. I didn't, you know, I went in a relationship with a whole heart, kind of like, you know, hoping that, you know, I wouldn't see those things, you know, in him. I didn't see a physical side of him. There was no physical stuff. It was just, like I said, mainly mental. So yes, I went in it wholeheartedly discussing it, and here he go. So it didn't faze him because he knew he wasn't abusing that type of form. He knew he was mental. He knew he was up to something, but it wasn't the same way.
Wow. I guess you're saying wrong answer because we're not supposed. I guess you're saying we shouldn't tell the next one. But here's a question from Jacqueline Samuels. She asked, I know an abused woman who has been married 20 plus years who believe if her husband comes to Christ, the abuse will end, and it hasn't. They have sat with their pastor for counseling numerous times, and she has had intercessors covering her in prayer. She and women in her family believes a good wife stays and trusts God. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. What would you say to the women and with such a mindset? Ooh, I want to know this one.
I would say that a woman in that mindset that God did not he don't want us to stay nowhere where we are abused. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. We can pray all day, but God's saying his word, faith without works is dead. Mm-hmm. So we can pray all day and we can pray all night. But if we still caught up in that situation, mm-hmm. and my thing is, because abuser is abuser, point blank. Mm-hmm. Until they realize that they're abuser, until they can be real with the fact that they're real with themselves, that they know that they got some problems and they need to go get it fixed on their own. Mm-hmm. That's what they are. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop until it gets bad, and ultimately, you're gonna miss out on what God is doing. Ultimately, because evidently he probably didn't want to say 20 years of abuse. I couldn't imagine being with nobody that long, and they going upside my head. And I probably need to go to the West Central Georgia Regional Hospital at this time because I'm so messed up of trauma. It messes you up, and the longer you stay, the longer it messes you up. Mentally, it messes you up. So my thing is, God did not tell us to stay in something that's going to kill us, especially if he ordained for us to move forward in the ministry, to move forward in the things of him. He does not call for us to stay in nothing like that. And they need to get rid of this tradition and this religion stuff. And this, they're trying to put that stuff in the Bible. They need to get rid of it because God didn't never tell us to stay until death do us part. I'm gonna kill you, and we gonna. Vows don't say that. Vows don't say I'm a stay in this and you gonna kill me. We gonna look. What is it? If you gonna stay in this and you gonna die trying? No. So God didn't mean for us to stay in nothing like that long. That's gonna tear us down. Because my thing is, what you really want to do? Praying and covering you, okay. But you still need to make a conscious decision to leave. Mm-hmm. Because if not, they're going to bury you. The same people praying over you going to bury you.
So here's the part 2. She says she is physically and emotionally abused. Plus, he cheats on her to her face. My God, what kind of ministry is?
That's what I'm saying. But what kind of ministry is she under that allows this type of stuff? She need to run. I'm sorry, but she need to run. She need to run somewhere and really get out of that ministry, because if that ministry is condoning a lot of the things that she's going through, she needs to leave. She need to leave and don't turn back. Because any ministry that is going to only pray for you, and then my God, I can't imagine. I'm talking, but I can't imagine being in a ministry, tied to a ministry like that somebody's actually going through this stuff and then nobody sees it. They turn a blind eye, they see it and won't do something about it. Because something clearly could be done. But she ultimately got to get out herself. She ultimately got to make up her mind that she can't be tied to him nor the ministry, because all of them will be gone. I'm sorry, I have a sense of humor.
They're all crazy. This is crazy. I have run out of advice for her at this point. At this point, we have to turn over to God, because she's not going to hear anything else. So he's going to have to really speak to her. And sadly, it may end in death if she doesn't seek God for herself.
Oh my God,
if those leaders see she is abused and they have blood on their hands, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. They sure do. Tell it, Pastor, they sure do.
Wow, my God, what church?
Shoot.
I need names. No, I'm just kidding. That's sad, and so we need to pray for that body and pray for those leaders who are encouraging her to stay in something like that. Is he cheating on her with the women in the church, or these women outside of the church, Jacqueline? I need to know this. I need to know how to pray. This is crazy.
Real crazy.
Yeah. I shared this broadcast to her timeline and hope she watches it. Ooh, child, please seek help. You want to speak to her? Because this is on her timeline, so you have a chance to minister to her. Kimberly.
Ma'am.
You have this opportunity to minister to her. This has gone to her timeline, whoever she is.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say this. If anybody's on this live and they are going through any type of abuse, and because a God don't call for you to be connected to nobody that's abusing you physically, mentally, verbally, sexually, any kind of abuse is not from God. You better believe that. And what the enemy does is he sends his imps to do things to you so it will stop the call of your life. The call of your life is more important than somebody sitting up. You got to sit up and take abuse. You don't have to take abuse. You are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Come on now.
Do you not hear me? You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you do not have to subject yourself to go through no abuse. I don't care if he giving you money, if it's financial reasons why you go through it, whatever reasons why you think you should stay in it, or this should be the more reasons why you need to leave. Because God said he is your provider. And don't you forget that, because you don't have to stay with nobody that feel like they got to pay their way or pay you or give you something to make you stay in something that's going to ultimately kill you. Because that's what it does. If you getting anything from them money wise and stuff, that's a big reason why men do what they do, because if they're driven by money, especially if they got a little piece of change, they'll do things to you and think you ought to be quiet about it. Oh, I'm finna buy her this, I'm gonna hit her tonight, and then I'm gonna buy some roses tomorrow. The devil is a lie, and the truth ain't in him.
Come on.
I said, you take them roses and you can burn them. Whatever you got money to reason. That's why women, we need to be women of substance. We need to have our own stuff so we don't have to depend on nobody, whether we married to them or not. We need to have our own stuff set up, and God will make a way. I'm telling you, I know what I came from. I don't depend on no man. Only man I depend on is the one upstairs. That's why when the enemy comes sending up them jokers around here to do all kind of crazy stuff, and no, I will go to my house. I got a house to go to. I have my own house. I got 2 cars. I don't have to depend on nothing nobody gives me to sit up and subject myself to some type of abuse. So if you really want to get out before it's too late, because if you don't, guess what's going to happen? You're going to die and the call on your life going to die. You're going to die spiritually. You're going to die emotionally. You're going to die all together. And you will not fulfill the purpose of God. And guess what? You're going to be at fault, because once the word go forward and you know better, you got to do better. God don't call nobody. I don't care how long you've been married. I don't care if you've been married 50 years and you still going through abuse. I don't care. Cut those ties off and leave that alone, because God has something greater. One thing God does is he does replace you with something greater. What you thought you lost was nothing. What you losing is your time and your mind and everything else that comes along with you spiritually that God wants. God, it's a requirement from God. It's a requirement. It's a mandate on your life. So if the enemy going to keep you tied to something that's going to use and abuse you and mess you up, then you're forfeiting the call on your life. God will turn you over, because when he said once he sent his warning, he said warning comes before destruction. So if the warning's been sent and you choose to stay in it, then that's on you. You know, that's on you. That is completely on you if you chose to stay in something that God has called you out of.
Amen. Whew. All right, you were preaching there for a minute. What's your passion? Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your story. Is there anything that you want to leave with so that we can have a takeaway? I know you were just ministering to someone. You know, I find that young women, these teenage women, they think it's cute when the guys are thugs and roughnecks and, you know, telling us, shut up, sit down, go over there, you know, this type of foolishness. And then they see grown-ups experience the same thing. So what would you say to those individuals?
Well, I would say to any young person, like I tell my boys, I say anytime that you're dating somebody, you're courting somebody, I want to meet them. Not that I'm trying to control you or tell you what to do, but I might see something you don't. Mm-hmm. So I always tell my children, I always give them a standard when it comes to dating. You know, because one of my sons, you know, he got caught up in some things with a female before, and I told him, I said, that's not it. And he gave me the fits. He was so mad because I got involved. I never met her and all that kind of stuff. So we have to train our children up in the way they're supposed to go, you know, and they'll never part from it. So the thing about that is you have to be with somebody that supports your goals and your dreams. You have to find out where they come from, what kind of family what the lineage, where they come from. Mm-hmm. You have to find out what bloodline they come from. Mm-hmm. Because we always should know what we're hooking up with. And a lot of times when we're young and stuff like that, we don't know what type of individuals we're hooking up with, what's their background, you know, what kind of parents they got. Mm-hmm. Because that's so very important, you know. And I said, do they go to church? I mean, what type of person they is? Do they cook and clean? What you know? You need to. I go dig. I dig very deep when it comes to relationship, because we have to be mindful because of all the experience that I've been through. I don't want my children to go through it for nothing. So we have to always say that, no, you want somebody decent, somebody that's going somewhere. We don't want no hot tail girl. She always somewhere trying to find out who she can lay in the bed with. She ain't got no type of goal. She ain't got no type of, no kind of self-respect. She always everywhere she on. And then if you go on the Facebook page, it tells you so much about a person. They just put it right there. So that stuff ain't changed. That's who they are, because they express it, you know, in the media. So we have to be careful when we, with our children. We don't, and I tell my children, pull your pants up. That stuff ain't cute. It just makes me sick.
It makes me sick too. Yeah.
So yeah, we have to learn how to respect ourselves, and then other people respect us. And in relationships, you hooking up. Remind who you hooking up with. You got to see where they're going. Get a career first. You know, get yourself going in a career field, and then if the person ain't, pushing you toward doing, spiritual and doing the right things, then what are you hooked up with? What do you have? What is it? Mm-hmm. Y'all might have some stuff in common, but if you're not going up and going in the right direction, then it ain't hitting on nothing for real. Y'all just puppy love. But get you somebody that ultimately, just have respect for themselves, and they not gonna try to get you caught up in the streets, in the bed, getting babies, and nowhere else. So that's the thing about it. Get a relationship with God.
Yes.
And it start with the parent. All that start with the parent. Because if the parent have to instill these things in their children, so when they leave home, it'll never depart from them.
Yes, train up the child the way they should
train them up. Because one thing about it, they might go out there and do their own thing, but because of the prayers, they're covered. So they're going to come on back eventually.
Absolutely. Well, when is the book coming out again?
I'm still writing. I'm working on it. I don't have a definite date. I need to get a date on it because I got to push this. I got to get it out.
You need to get this out. It needs to get in the hands of every woman. And when your book does come out, we want you to come back. And,
yes, ma'am. I will come back anytime you want me to come back.
Your book. Again, thank you so much for availing yourself at such a late hour. The guest that we had an emergency, and we're praying for her.
Okay.
And so I was like a little after 3, and you were available. So I thank you.
Oh, man.
I thank you for Daryl Williams, who's on our team, who reached out to you. So that was a blessing. And
yes, it was.
I believe that the women were blessed.
I pray. If they can reach me on Facebook if they have any more questions or anything on them. Kimberly Curse on Facebook. I got an Instagram page as well. So my first and last name are still the same. So if anybody want to reach out and want to talk, need some prayer, whatever it is I could do, I'm open, for it. Whatever they want to talk about, it stays with me. I don't gossip. So I'm just here. I'm here to pour in. I'm not here to tear down.
All right now. Thank you. This has been a joy. I thank you. I'm going to connect with you on Facebook as well. So I'm going to reach out to you, and hopefully we can have you back on another topic, and as well as when your book come out.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I thank everybody for chiming in. Thank you, Pastor Porterfield. Love you.
I forgot our topic for next week, but we have Jason T. Mahoney. JT Mahoney will be with us next week. I will share that topic a little later. I'm so wrapped up, I forgot what the topic was next week. But this is a powerful young man. I saw him on another platform, and I still have not forgotten the nuggets that he shared about the salsa in the cup. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Please share this so that others may see this as it replay. Again, Kimberly, we thank you so much for joining us. And please reach out to her and follow her on social media. She has given you her name to follow her. Have a good evening. And if you're in an abusive relationship, it's okay to get out, seek help. You need to get out and don't stay. I'm fortunate that I have never been in that type of relationship. So there's a national hotline, 1-800, what is it? 1-800 suicide safe or something like that. I don't know, but I will put that on the platform as well so that you guys can call that number so that you can be safe. God bless you all and have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Please join Cherie and her special guest again next week for another riveting and informative segment of His Will for Your Life podcast.